My best friend came to me the day before my wedding, showing me photos of my fiancé and him in my bedroom. He said, "This is us tonight. While you were away, she was never yours." He smirked. I didn't react. But this morning, he woke up to find his life in ruins. What happened next will leave you speechless. I've often thought about what people mean when they talk about gut instincts. You hear about it all the time, someone saying they knew something wasn't right, that something felt off, yet they brush that feeling away. Looking back, I realized that my own gut had been screaming at me for months before my wedding day. It whispered that my fiancée, Bianca, and my best friend, Raphael, were getting too close, far closer than was normal. But I was busy with my demanding job at a software consultancy, busy planning the wedding Bianca wanted, busy trying to please her very demanding parents, Fernando and Lorena. Even though I occasionally felt a pang of jealousy seeing Bianca and Raphael laugh together in a corner or noticed how Raphael's eyes lingered on her in ways that made me uneasy, I simply didn't have the energy to wrestle with those suspicions. I was exhausted from too many 12-hour workdays and too many calls and errands that came with planning a massive wedding. My parents, as loving as they were, neither had the means nor the know-how to assist with all the lavish demands Bianca and her mother insisted upon. That left me juggling about 100 responsibilities with no room to breathe. But the red flags were there. For instance, Bianca and Raphael texted far more often than a best friend and fiancé should. I caught them smiling at messages or referencing jokes they refused to share with me. If I asked, "Hey, what's so funny?" they'd respond with dismissive shrugs or good-natured but evasive remarks, "Just a silly meme, an inside joke, nothing you'd be interested in," and so on. I had known Raphael since our freshman year of college. We shared a cramped dorm, pulled all-nighters for finals, and covered for each other when we needed it. We were, I believed, as close as brothers. And maybe that's why I managed to stifle my own concerns. I just couldn't imagine him betraying my trust so brazenly. He's my best man, I told myself. He's got my back, right? Right. As for Bianca, she came from a much wealthier background. Fernando's family prided themselves on their local prominence. Fernando was heavily involved in local politics, and Lorena acted as the imperious socialite who graced every fundraiser and charity ball with condescending smiles. While I proposed to Bianca, they grudgingly accepted me. Though not explicitly rude, they always made sure to remind me that I was marrying up, that their family name had standards to maintain. Their arrogance showed in the wedding planning as well. "We'll split the cost 50-50, her parents had said, but they pushed for a lavish venue, extravagant centerpieces, a string quartet, and a guest list that ballooned to almost 300. My folks, a retired schoolteacher father and a near-retiring nurse mother, had to dig into their savings to meet their half. No matter how many times I tried to set boundaries, it always ended with Bianca's mother saying, "We can't cut corners. We're the Fernando family." Or, "Think of what people will say. You want your bride to look cheap on her big day?" That language grated on me, but Bianca sided with her parents. More often than not, she'd wave me off. "Let them have their fun. We'll only do this once, right?" Famous last words. A week before the wedding, Raphael, grinning confidently, offered to handle hotel reservations for out-of-town guests. "You've got enough on your plate." "Let me take care of it," he said, flashing phone screenshots. It felt like our college days, trusting him with something important. Relieved, I thanked him. The night before the wedding, our families gathered for the rehearsal dinner at the final venue. Bianca, in an almost bridal white dress, flitted between her father's relatives, who barely acknowledged me. My parents lingered awkwardly, uncomfortable with the wealth on display. Raphael gave me occasional thumbs-ups from across the room. After the run-through, we moved to the lounge for an after-party. Spirits were high until I noticed Bianca was missing. Calls went straight to voicemail. A bridesmaid casually said she felt overwhelmed and stepped out for air. I shrugged. It was the night before the wedding, maybe she just needed space. Time trickled by, and then Raphael disappeared too. At first, I wasn't overly suspicious. Possibly, he had gone to grab more champagne or something, but a nagging voice in my head whispered, "Go look for him and look for her." Half an hour turned into an hour. Curiosity burned inside me.
So, I grabbed my phone, scrolled through social media, and checked if Bianca or Raphael had posted anything. Sure enough, I stumbled upon Bianca's Instagram. She had accidentally uploaded a short story and deleted it within seconds, but the damage was already done. In that brief clip, I recognized a hotel hallway, the golden pattern on the carpet, and a partially visible door number. It was definitely not the corridor at our wedding venue, different place, different hotel. My chest tightened. The gut feeling I had suppressed for months roared back to life. Go see for yourself. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I remember driving through the busy streets near the hotel district, my mind racing with possible explanations. Maybe she went to a friend's room. Maybe Raphael was just helping her pick something up. My heart pounded as I considered the worst. What if they really are together? That's insane. This can't be real. But the part of me that was now fully awake refused to be silenced. I knew Raphael had made some hotel bookings for guests recently, but I didn't have the exact details. So, I parked, walked into the lobby of one of the upscale boutique hotels, and tried to see if the front desk recognized me from earlier visits or from Raphael's group reservations. My plan was barely formed, but as luck would have it, I spotted Raphael's car parked near the entrance. If that wasn't a sign, I didn't know what was. I took the elevator up to the 8th floor. My eyes scanned each door number, searching for the one I had glimpsed in the Instagram video, room 846, 847. My pulse raced. Each step echoed in the silent corridor. The night outside the windows was pitch black. The overhead lighting felt too bright, as if it were exposing me before I even had the chance to confront them. But I didn't want a confrontation, not yet. Something inside me insisted on gathering proof so I would never doubt my own sanity afterward. So, I moved quietly, pressing my ear against the door of room 847. At first, I heard nothing. Heart hammering, I carefully tested the handle, and to my shock, the door wasn't deadbolt from the inside. Someone had carelessly left it locked only by the electronic mechanism. Ironically, Raphael had once slipped me a master key card earlier that month, citing wedding emergencies, just in case something went wrong with the guest rooms. He had said it would come in handy. I fished it out of my pocket, slid it into the slot, and after a moment, the tiny LED turned green. The handle unlocked with a soft click. They handed me the weapon themselves for their own downfall, I thought, my stomach twisting. I slipped inside without a sound. The room was dimly lit, soft shadows flickering along the walls. I heard quiet, intimate whispers, and my blood began to boil. There, sprawled across the king-size bed, Bianca was tangled up with Raphael, bare-skinned, her hair a wild mess. She lay sideways across the plush bedding, and Raphael was leaning over her. They were murmuring to each other, though I couldn't make out the words, but her giggle was enough. That was all I needed to see. Rage surged through me so violently that my hands clenched into fists on instinct. I wanted to scream, to rip Raphael off the bed and beat him senseless for doing this. But a cold, rational part of my mind stopped me. Don't react. Get the proof. I remembered that the wedding was less than 12 hours away. I wanted them to stand at that altar with me, thinking I had no idea, so I could expose them in front of everyone. Let them believe they had gotten away with it. With trembling hands, I lifted my phone, switched to video mode, and zoomed in. My thumb hovered over the record button. Yes, I told myself, let them see exactly what you saw. I recorded a few seconds, capturing every humiliating detail: Bianca's face, Raphael's posture, the date and time stamped in the corner. They had no idea I was there. Raphael whispered something like, "No one will ever find out," followed by Bianca's low, breathy laugh. The camera picked it up perfectly. Perfect. My whole body shook with rage. I forced myself to stay quiet so they wouldn't notice. No confrontation, not yet. I repeated that mantra over and over, gripping onto it like an anchor for my sanity. Once I had enough footage, I carefully stepped back, still recording, making sure my phone's microphone caught every incriminating sound. I eased the door shut just as quietly as I had opened it. Then I fled, nearly sprinting down the hallway to the elevator. It felt like a bomb had been strapped to my chest, set to detonate the next day. Outside, the cold night air hit me like a slap of icy water. My heart pounded as if I had run a marathon. Rage surged through me in waves, threatening to explode into a scream or a breakdown. My sweaty hand clenched around my phone, the undeniable proof that the two people I trusted most had betrayed me. I took a few minutes to calm down, forcing my breathing into a steady rhythm. Then, I got into my car and drove aimlessly until I found a 24-hour diner. Sitting in a worn-out booth, I reviewed the footage in private. There was no doubt. That was the moment when the seeds of my revenge took root. If they wanted to humiliate me, they had done a fantastic job. But I wouldn't be the only one humiliated tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. By 5 a.m., I had downed 3 cups of coffee, scribbled notes for my wedding presentation, and mentally rehearsed how to manipulate the schedule so I would have control over the microphone and projector. Our venue had top-of-the-line AV equipment for a slideshow meant to showcase our childhoods and relationship milestones. I had carefully curated everything: baby pictures of Bianca, my own embarrassing teenage photos, snapshots of us together at the beach. All of it could be replaced in an instant. I knew the system well enough to switch the feed to any external source, a USB drive, a phone, anything. A part of me hesitated, haunted by the idea that I was about to show a deeply private, intimate moment. But then I remembered what they had done the night before our wedding. The cruelty of that betrayal justified, at least in my mind, the severity of my payback. Actions have consequences. At 6:30 a.m., I headed home to the apartment Bianca and I had shared for almost a year. Unsurprisingly, she wasn't back yet. If she thought I was clueless, maybe she had snuck in around dawn, slipped into the guest room, and planned to pretend she had just been out for a girls' night. But when I opened the door, everything was exactly as we had left it. The living room light was off. The bedroom was neat. I stepped inside what once felt like home, now it felt foreign. I saw her phone charger on the bedside table and the engagement ring box I had given her still displayed on the dresser. The heartbreak flared again, but so did the anger. She had thrown away everything we had built for a cheap fling with my best friend. I set my phone to vibrate and tried to rest for an hour or two, but my mind refused to quiet down. Around 9 a.m., Bianca finally showed up. I heard the soft beep of the door unlocking. I pretended to be asleep, waiting to see if she would try to sneak in. Sure enough, her footsteps were light, as if she didn't want to wake me up and face questions about where she had been. She didn't even peek into the master bedroom. I heard her slip into the guest room, probably fixing herself up before coming to see me. Half an hour later, I emerged, faking a yawn as if everything was normal. She was sitting at the kitchen island, hair brushed, wearing a casual t-shirt and sweatpants. She gave me a tired smile. "Morning, babe," she said. "I crashed at a friend's place last night. Too much wine at the rehearsal dinner. You know how it is." I smiled back, my mind racing with thoughts of last night's video. "Must have been some party," I responded calmly. "Just glad you're okay." I gave her a quick peck on the cheek, resisting every urge to say something cutting. Her eyes flickered with a hint of relief, maybe even a trace of caution. She's trying to read me, I realized. She must have been worried that I suspected something, but my expression gave away nothing except mild acceptance. "I want you to think you got away with it. I just had to keep up the charade for a few more hours." The wedding was set for noon at the exclusive Wentworth Country Estate, chosen for its prestige. My parents arrived at 10 a.m., excited but completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I greeted them with hollow hugs. My mother beamed in her pastel dress. My father clapped me on the back, likely reminiscing about the quiet boy I used to be. Forcing a smile, I told them I had last-minute AV setups to handle. "See you soon." Bianca and her bridesmaids were fussing over hair and makeup in their suite. Raphael was probably in the groomsman's room, but I had no intention of looking for him. Let him think I was still in the dark. I slipped into the AV booth overlooking the ballroom. Tony, the technician, was running tests on a microphone and projector. "This is the groom, Daniel," he told his colleague. He's got some extra stuff he wants to add to the show, right? Yeah, I confirmed with an easy grin. I pulled a flash drive from my jacket pocket. I've got a surprise video. Instead of the usual couples slideshow, I'm doing something a little more dramatic. Tony chuckled. Hey, it's your big day, man. Just let me know the cue so I can swap out the files. I tapped the flash drive between my fingers. I'll give you a signal. Maybe I'll just say roll it. Time passed in a blur as I prepared for the moment that would define not just this day but the rest of my life, or at least that's what everyone here believed. Every movement, every detail was calculated. I adjusted my tie in front of the mirror, took a deep breath, and stared at my reflection. The composed expression I saw didn't match the storm raging inside me. It was a perfect day for a wedding. The sun cast golden rays over the estate's perfectly manicured lawn. The flowers were arranged with meticulous care. The scent of lavender and roses filled the air, and the guests were elegantly dressed, smiling, ready to witness what they thought would be the union of two people deeply in love. Bianca was in another room, surrounded by her bridesmaids, probably laughing, oblivious to what was about to happen. Raphael, the man I had once called my best friend, was likely somewhere nearby, satisfied with himself, convinced that everything was going according to plan. They both believed that this day would end with a wedding celebration, champagne toasts, and a future together. But the reality was very different. The makeup artist put the finishing touches on my face. The hairstylist asked if I wanted another quick touch-up. I nodded absent-mindedly, barely paying attention to anyone watching. I looked like any other groom, maybe a little nervous, as was expected, but I wasn't nervous. I was waiting. The clock read 11:45. 15 minutes until the show began. Guests settled into their seats as soft music played in the background. My parents sat in the front row alongside Bianca's parents, who exchanged glances of pride. To them, this wedding was another display of their social status, another grand event to reinforce their importance. I had been nothing more than a carefully chosen piece in their spectacle. The officiant gave me a small nod. It was time. I adjusted my jacket and walked to the altar, feeling the weight of every eye on me. I played my role perfectly, composed, elegant, the picture of a devoted groom, ready to commit to what everyone believed would be a lifelong partnership. Then the music changed. The guests turned, eager to see the bride. Bianca appeared at the entrance, glowing in her white lace gown, holding a delicate bouquet, smiling like an angel. Her veil floated lightly over her face, but I could see the excitement in her eyes. If only she knew. She moved gracefully, savoring each step as if walking toward a fairy tale ending. Her father escorted her down the aisle, beaming with pride. I remained still, my expression neutral, refusing to reveal even a hint of what was about to unfold. When she reached the altar, she smiled at me, taking my hand. Her skin was warm. She looked genuinely happy, as if in her mind, everything was exactly as it should be, as if what she had done meant nothing. The officiant began speaking about love, loyalty, and commitment, words that, when coming from him, sounded beautiful but, coming from her, were meaningless. I nodded along, waiting for my moment. Then it was time for the vows. Bianca turned toward me with eager anticipation, her eyes filled with expectation, waiting to hear the heartfelt words she assumed I would say. I took a deep breath, looked at the guests, and began. Today, in front of all of you, I want to talk about love, real love, the kind that is built on trust, respect, and mutual devotion, because without those things, love is just an illusion. I felt Bianca squeeze my hand slightly, perhaps surprised by my tone, but I continued. For a long time, I believed Bianca was the love of my life. I believed we were building something strong together, that we were ready to take this step because when you love someone, you trust them. You give them your heart, your life, your future. You believe they will do the same for you. The guests smiled. Some even sighed, thinking I was about to deliver a deeply romantic speech. But sometimes reality is different. Sometimes you discover that love is not always reciprocated, that behind a smile there can be betrayal. And I know this because I saw it with my own eyes. Bianca blinked, her smile faltering. Confusion crossed her face, quickly morphing into fear. I pressed my lips together and glanced toward Tony, the AV technician. With a small nod, I gave the signal. And to make sure there's no doubt, I want to share a little video with all of you. The lights dimmed, and the massive screen behind us flickered to life. The reception hall, once filled with warmth and excitement, fell into a deafening silence. The footage started with a shaky shot before focusing on the hotel hallway, the golden carpet, the door with the number 847. Then the scene cut to the inside of the room, Bianca and Raphael tangled in the sheets, whispering to each other. Bianca's laughter filled the hall, but this time there were no smiles among the guests, only shock, disbelief, and disgust. Murmurs began rippling through the crowd, at first, hushed whispers of confusion, then louder gasps of realization. Bianca's mother covered her mouth with both hands, horrified. Her father sat frozen, his face turning red with rage. My father looked at me, confused, as if unsure whether he should step in or let this play out. My mother, ever the composed one, lowered her head, as if she had already known there was no stopping this. But the best part was Bianca's reaction. Her hands flew to her mouth, eyes wide in pure terror, her face draining of all color. Her breathing became erratic, her body trembling as she tried to grasp what was happening. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered, her voice barely audible over the rising chaos in the room, but the video was still playing. Now Raphael was whispering, "No one will ever find out," followed by Bianca's breathy laugh. The hall erupted. Some bridesmaids stood frozen in shock. The groomsmen exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do. My gaze locked onto Raphael's. He was ghostly pale, frozen in place, completely exposed. "Congratulations to both of you," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I hope it was worth it." With that, I turned and walked away from the altar. The wedding was over. But this was just the beginning. The aftermath was immediate. The video of the ceremony spread like wildfire across social media. At first, it was just a few guests sharing in private group chats, texting friends, and gossiping about the wedding disaster. But like anything shocking on the internet, the story took on a life of its own. Within 24 hours, someone posted a clip of the footage on Twitter with the caption, "Wedding of the Year, Groom exposes cheating fiancé during vows and cancels everything live." The video exploded. The moment when Bianca and Raphael appeared on the giant screen at our wedding, caught in the hotel bed, was shared across every platform imaginable. The comments were ruthless. Strangers who had never met us dissected the situation as if they had front row seats. "This is straight out of a movie. She deserved every second of that humiliation. And the best friend? That dude is beyond scummy. The groom is a legend. Respect." It wasn't long before TikTok was flooded with reenactments, memes, and dramatic voiceovers narrating the scene. Bianca's name became synonymous with betrayal and disgrace. While the internet had its fun at her expense, she scrambled to erase herself from the digital world. Her social media accounts vanished within hours, but it was too late. People commented on her old posts, ridiculing her, tagging her employer. That's when things really began to fall apart. Bianca's family had always been obsessed with appearances. Her prestigious job was a reflection of the status they clung to. But just as the internet never forgets, neither does the corporate world. The Monday after the wedding catastrophe, Bianca received an unexpected email summoning her to a meeting with the company directors. No warning, no explanation, just a formal request to be in the office at 9 a.m. She still thought she could salvage her reputation. But the moment she stepped into the conference room and saw the expression on her boss's face, she knew. "Bianca," the director started, his tone devoid of warmth, "we've received numerous messages from clients and partners. Your name is now linked to a public scandal that's bringing negative attention to our company." She tried to argue, but this is a personal matter. It stops being personal when it affects the company's image. We cannot have an employee embroiled in such a high-profile controversy. Your termination is effective immediately. And just like that, she lost her job. As for me, unlike Bianca, my life took an entirely different turn. After leaving the wedding, I checked into a hotel. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I scrolled through my notifications, reading messages from friends, watching the video of the event explode across the internet. People I hadn't spoken to in years were reaching out to express their support, and complete strangers were congratulating me for my perfect execution. Over the next few days, I made a decision: I needed a fresh start. I packed my things and walked away from the apartment Bianca and I had shared. There was nothing left for me there. I rented a new place, a space that was mine and mine alone. I refocused on work, something I had neglected over the past months while juggling Bianca's endless wedding demands. Slowly, I reconnected with old friends, people I had unintentionally pushed aside to prioritize a relationship that had been doomed from the start. My daily routine changed drastically. Before, my life revolved around maintaining a relationship that was built on lies. Now, every day felt like a step toward rebuilding myself. At work, my performance skyrocketed. My boss took notice. A few weeks later, I was called into a meeting. Unlike Bianca's, mine led to something good. "We've been reviewing your recent performance," my manager said. "You've shown leadership and dedication. We'd like to offer you a promotion." I accepted without hesitation. What once felt like the end of everything turned out to be the start of something much better. Meanwhile, Bianca desperately tried to make people forget. She still had a name, but now, instead of being associated with success and class, it had become a joke. She avoided going out, terrified of whispers and stares. She applied for new jobs, but every interview led to the same result. Her past followed her like a shadow. I had my fresh start; for her, there was only ruin. And Raphael? He disappeared. He deleted his social media and stayed out of public view. From what I heard, his career also took a hit. He worked in an industry where reputation was everything. A few weeks after the scandal, word got around that he had quietly resigned. No one knew where he went. But I no longer cared. My new life was just beginning. There was a time when I thought everything that had happened to me was a personal tragedy, one of those nightmare scenarios you'd only see in movies. I kept asking myself why fate had chosen to humiliate me in such a way, why I had to go through all of it just to finally see the truth. But over time, I learned that some downfalls are necessary and that some betrayals are actually blessings in disguise. The first few months after the wedding disaster were intense. I threw myself into work, into my new apartment, into a routine that made me feel like I had control over my life again. I kept telling myself that I was fine, that everything that happened was just a phase I'd eventually move past. But deep down, something lingered. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't regret. It was a mix of disbelief and silent anger. Bianca had been my entire world, and in an instant, she became nothing but a ghost, a name I refused to mention, a memory I tried to bury every time it surfaced in my mind. But the past always finds a way to return. It was on an ordinary day, months later, that I found out. I was at work when a friend sent me a message, something simple, no context, just a link to a post and the words, "Have you seen this?" I hesitated before clicking, but when I did, the impact was immediate. Bianca had a child. She wasn't pregnant, she was already a mother. It took me a few seconds to process. It wasn't a viral announcement, nobody was talking about it online. It was just a quiet post, no big declarations, as if she was trying to live a normal life away from public scrutiny. But the most interesting part, she was alone. There was no sign of the child's father, no mention, no couple photos, no wedding ring, just Bianca holding her baby in her arms, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The questions flooded my mind before I could stop them. Was Raphael the father? Was he still in her life? The answers came quickly. No, Raphael wasn't there. In fact, Raphael had practically disappeared. After the public humiliation, he lost everything: his job, his friends, his reputation. Some said he had moved to another city, trying to start over where no one knew his name. Others claimed he had spiraled, lost, unable to face the consequences of what he had done. What was clear was that Bianca was on her own. The same Bianca who always surrounded herself with people who had clung so desperately to her image, was now just a single mother trying to rebuild her life. And while I wanted to say I felt nothing when I saw that post, that would be a lie. It wasn't love. It wasn't nostalgia. But it wasn't just resentment either. It was a mix of indifference and quiet satisfaction. Because now, after everything, I was fine. I had rebuilt my life. I had left behind the lies, the betrayal, the theatrical performance I had been forced into. And Bianca, she was finally facing the consequences of her choices. Time passed. The scandal that once dominated social media eventually faded, as every viral story does. People moved on to new gossip, new dramas to consume. Life kept going. I moved on. My career was stable. My social life was better than ever. And the weight of that betrayal no longer lingered over me. I had convinced myself that everything that happened was just part of my past, something that no longer had power over me. Until one day, the past found me again. It was completely by chance. I was leaving a cafe when I saw her, Bianca. She was sitting by the window, holding a cup of coffee, a baby stroller beside her. My heart skipped a beat, not out of anger, not out of resentment, but something different, something strange. She didn't see me at first. She looked tired, lost in thought. Her hair was tied up messily. Her clothes were simple, nothing like the flawless, put-together image she once maintained. I could have kept walking, pretended I didn't see her. But something made me stop. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that unresolved part of me that still needed closure. Or maybe, deep down, I just wanted to see for myself what had become of her. I took a deep breath and walked back inside. She looked up at the exact moment I approached. For a second, her face froze. Her eyes widened slightly, and I saw a mix of shock and shame in them. She hadn't expected to see me. "Hey, Bianca," I said. Her breath hitched, and she gripped the handle of the stroller as if she needed something to hold on to. "Hey," she replied, her voice quiet, uncertain. The silence between us was thick, heavy. She lowered her gaze to her coffee, as if debating whether to say something or pretend this encounter wasn't happening. "I didn't expect to see you here," she finally murmured. "Neither did I said. I sat across from her without asking if I could. The baby in the stroller shifted slightly, letting out a small sound. I looked at the child. She noticed. "He's my son," she said, almost like a confession. I nodded. "He's cute," I said, unsure of what else to say. She let out a short laugh, but there was no joy in it. It was bitter, like years of pain were buried in that single sound. "You won, didn't you?" she whispered. I frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since I walked in. "Look at you," she said, gesturing toward me. "Dressed well, confident, living your life like nothing happened. And look at me." Her voice wavered, and for a moment, I saw tears threatening to form in her eyes, though she refused to let them fall. "I lost everything, you know," she continued, a sad smile forming on her lips. "My job, my reputation, my friends, even my family turned their backs on me." I didn't respond. I already knew, but hearing it from her made it feel different. "I deserved to be exposed," she admitted after a moment. "What I did was unforgivable." She glanced down at the baby. "But I never thought the punishment would last forever." I swallowed hard. For a moment, I thought about telling her she was being dramatic, that time heals all wounds. But something in her expression, in the exhaustion in her eyes, made me realize that for her, things hadn't moved forward. For her, everything had stopped that day on that screen when her world crumbled. And at that moment, something inside me softened. I had always taken pride in my revenge. I had always believed I did the right thing, but now, looking at her, someone who had lost everything, who had suffered long after the world moved on, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I had been a little too cruel. Bianca, I started, not entirely sure what I wanted to say. You don't have to, she interrupted. I don't want your apology. I don't want your pity. I just want you to know that I regret it more than anything. I let out a slow breath. The past couldn't be changed. What she did, what I did, none of it could be erased. But maybe, just maybe, time could at least close the wound. I never meant to ruin your life, I admitted. She let out a dry, humorless laugh. But you did. I had no response to that. For the first time, I didn't see Bianca as the villain in my story. I saw a person who had made a mistake, who would pay the price, but who was still human. And for the first time, I wondered if my own pride had blinded me to the full consequences of my actions. After all, I had moved on. My life had continued. But what about hers? I hope you're able to rebuild, I said finally. She blinked, surprised. Maybe she expected me to say something else. Thank you, she murmured. We sat in silence for a few more moments. Then I stood up. It was good seeing you, I said, though I wasn't sure if it was true. She nodded and lowered her gaze back to her child. I walked out of the cafe without looking back. This time, it felt like the true ending to our story. But unlike what I had once imagined, I didn't walk away feeling victorious, just with a strange weight in my chest and the realization that, in the end, we all pay a price for what we do.